This is, I will confess, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is my dream job, Sean.
I'm the best in the community, and I'd like to give back to the community that's given me so much.
We had focused on several sites initially. Well, I think this is where Dave and I, do
Welcome to the LynnCAM TV Show, where we focus on organizations and the services they bring to citizens here in Lynn. Here with me today to discuss the Mass Commission for the Blind, we have Paul Sainer, Commissioner for the Mass Commission for the Blind. We have Dr. Neil Gross, an ophthalmologist in Lynn, Joseph McKeezy, a blind senior citizen of Lynn, and Thelma Williams, the Northeast Regional Director. Also, if you guys can notice, we also have Phoenix here, who's a seeing eye dog. Our goal in today's program really is to highlight what the Mass Commission for the Blind does for senior citizens, as well as get a firsthand a perspective as what it's like to be a blind citizen here in Lynn. We'll be talking about the biology of eyes and how blindness has occurred and when it'd be a good appropriate time to actually go get your eyes checked. The Mass Commission for the Blind, established in 1906, provides the highest quality of rehabilitation and social services to individuals who are blind, leading to independence and full community participation. MCB does this by working in participation with the consumers who are legally blind, families, community agencies, healthcare providers, and employers. Currently, right now, the Mass Commission for the Blind has around approximately 30,000 legally blind individuals. So a lot of interesting stuff with this commission, and there's a law that revolves around it. I'm looking at your website. The law, I'm not a big law guy, so I apologize if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Law C6S136, which really kind of just states that any physician who recognizes that a citizen is blind, that they have to report it to the Mass Commission for the Blind so that they know who they need to help out. Before we get too much into the organization and what each of your functions are, let's just do a quick little intro, learn a little bit about who you guys are and what brings you down. Paul, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I've been the commissioner of MCB for about 14 months and am a native of Massachusetts, initially Western Mass and now the Boston area. And I've been legally blind since I was 36, 23 years ago, and am very privileged to be one of the 16 commissioners of Health and Human Services. And we're responsible, as you indicated, for both vocational rehabilitation as well as social rehabilitation of legally blind consumers.
We'll talk about the differences between those, but happy to have you.
Thank you.
Dr. Gross?
Yes, I'm an ophthalmologist, and I'm in practice in Lynn, Massachusetts. I do cataract surgery. I treat patients with complex medical eye problems like glaucoma and macular degeneration. And I also subspecialize in the treatment of eyelid diseases. I do both cosmetic and functional eyelid surgery. I'm a subspecialist in ophthalmic plastic surgery too.
You know, it's interesting, the eyes, we really kind of take it for granted. It's not something that when you're young you really have to worry about too much. But before the program we were talking about one of the things that, people are kind of scared to see their physicians when they're having eye problems. And like you had said, your physician isn't going to give you something that you already don't have. So it makes sense to go down there because it'll affect you in the long run. So good, great. Joe, let's talk a little bit about you and your story. Joe, you're a senior citizen here in Lynn, legally blind, and you're on your own.
Totally blind, yeah. I was born in '47. I'm 67. I come from a broken home. I've been here 30 years. I was thrown out of my home, but I had all sorts of problems early in life. They pushed me too hard in learning. Now it's almost hard for me even to go out and travel because I get lost very easy, so I take the ride. And I wish I could get more help from the Commission for the Blind. I know I've been disappointed. Like I said before we went on, I know Paul's inherited a lot of problems that a lot of us try to get the help we need, and not just sheltered workshops, but we just don't know where to go, and some of us can't seem to get anywhere unless we're lucky or know someone in power that can get some help. So that's basically my story. I'm pretty much alone. I live alone on Social Security.
Yeah, as if it wasn't hard enough, you get thrown a curveball where you're also blind too. I mean, there's not a lot that I can do to identify with your situation because I've really never been in something like that. But I can definitely empathize with what you're dealing with. And it's great that you're here because hopefully your feedback can offer these guys some incentive for continuous improvements. Thelma, let's talk a little bit about you and your responsibility, Northeast Regional Director of the Mass Commission for the Blind.
Correct. Excuse me. I've been with the Commission for about 7 years, going on 7 years. I manage the Northeast region. And I work with the staff, RTs, rehabilitation teachers, social workers, children's social workers, and we go out into the community and try to help individuals like Joseph be more independent. And I have a social work background.
Okay, so I wanted to focus on a little bit of the commission right now and talk about the services that are offered and really what you guys take pride in. How do you sell it? How do you go about it? Say you get a blind citizen who comes in, either they're newly blind or it's somebody that you've just learned about. I mean, typically, what are the services that people benefit from more than the rest? Paul?
Well, there's 3 foundation level services that are absolutely indispensable for a newly blinded adult to regain productive independence. And those are orientation and mobility, which is being able to move around safely in space as independently as possible, typically with the use of a long white cane. Once one has achieved the ability to orient themselves, then they become eligible also for possibly working with a guide dog. The second indispensable service, Thelma alluded to, rehabilitation teaching. And that helps a consumer be as organized as they possibly can to match the right tie with a suit, to be able to operate safely and efficiently in the kitchen, as just a few examples. The third indispensable service is assistive technology. And we are very fortunate, the blindness community, to be great beneficiaries of advances in assistive technology. Since I was declared legally blind 23 years ago, my ability to access information is far more efficient today as a nearly totally blind person than when I mainstream my way through college and graduate school. So those are the 3 fundamental services. From there, if you're on the vocational rehabilitation track, meaning you're capable of competitive integrated employment, and perhaps if you have higher level educations beyond, aspirations for education beyond special education, we have significant funding from both the Commonwealth and the federal government to get that consumer back to work or for that consumer to retain their present job. On the social rehabilitation side, which is everyone other than working age adults that are on the VR track, we offer a wide range of services. Thelma referenced children's service workers that work with young blind consumers. We're the lead agency for deaf-blind consumers. We provide residential services to some of those consumers. We provide a very specialized community access program for those deaf-blind consumers that are more independent and capable of living in the community. But the most significant component of our registry are those 65 and older. There's a very significant correlation of legal blindness with age. Fully 2% of all residents in the Commonwealth age 65 and over are legally blind, and the numbers are going to grow as the silver tsunami, the aging of the baby boomers become older. So there's a wide range of different services depending upon the consumer's needs, our funding. So that's a brief overview.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that you do what you can to provide housing for some of the people who are blind. What qualifications are considered in helping person A versus person B? What's the deciding factor?
Well, I didn't say that we provide housing for consumers. We are not a housing agency. We have no direct access to housing. We do have a couple of social workers that are experts in trying to identify opportunities for income-eligible consumers to benefit from subsidized housing.
Okay.
I referenced deaf-blind consumers in providing residential services, which typically means specialized nursing homes.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. So you had mentioned also vocational versus social. So you have, trying to get people back into the workforce as well as to be able to function within their community. Top priority for what you guys do. Thelma, I'd like to take a little bit of perspective as to what you deal with on a regular basis over there in the Northeast region. And I mean, it's your responsibility to manage this location. In the Northeast region, what stories are you hearing more than any other?
We hear more about homelessness.
Okay.
And as Paul stated, we really are a housing agency. We provide what we can as far as
Right.
referrals and so forth.
So subsidizing, that's something that you guys try to work with?
We try to make referrals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So more or less, you'd say homelessness is something that you're dealing with over there in the Northeast region.
And
Okay.
we're noticing more refugees
Okay,
are coming to the agency needing help.
okay.
And with that comes interpreters. So we offer interpreter services as well. I would say those are the two
Top
issues
priorities
that are
you guys
growing.
are dealing with.
Yeah.
Something that you probably see 4 or 5 times on a day-to-day basis. You had mentioned also, Paul, that the commission, I just lost my train of thought, I apologize. We'll get back to it. Dr. Neil Gross, let's talk a little bit about the biology in the eyes. As we had mentioned before, you have all different types of blindness that happens. I mean, this is something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. A good example to kind of use right now is that Joe, who's a senior citizen in Lynn, was born with blindness. Paul, who's the commissioner of the Mass Commission for the Blind, obtained it, you said 25 years ago, 23?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us the difference. I mean, like, in your line of work, what do you see on a regular basis?
That's a very good question. The question is, well, what causes blindness? And, earlier between the panel members, we discussed some of what we call the etiologies, the reasons that they're blind. Just for the viewing audiences, so they understand, the eye's like a camera. Inside the eye, there's a lens. Everybody has a lens. In the back of the camera is the retina. Those are nerve fibers that bring the image back to the back of the eye. And that, if you use that frame of reference, you can understand why a person might be blind. So for example, in the third world, the most common cause of blindness is cataracts. That lens gets very cloudy and dense, doesn't let the light in. In the United States, we see many, many cataracts. Everybody by the age of 70 has a cataract. But it doesn't get to the point where it completely blocks out the vision, so the person is blind.
Right.
Now, so that's an easily remedial cause of blindness. As you go farther back in the eye, it gets more difficult. And there are a wide variety of retinal diseases and nerve diseases like glaucoma, for example, that can cause blindness. The problem with those diseases is that the retina is made up of nervous tissue, and the nerve is also made up of nervous tissue. And once the nerves die, they're gone. You cannot bring them back. So we were talking a little bit earlier. The gentleman said, well, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could either transplant an optic nerve or grow a new optic nerve? And that's really the holy grail. Lastly, for example, I was talking with the commissioner about cortical blindness. Once the eye, which is the camera, brings the image back to the brain, 35% of the brain is occupied with the visual system. It runs through 35% of the brain. But in the end, it all comes together in the back of the eye, in the cortical region. And any damage there, trauma, a brain tumor, a bleed, a hemorrhage, can destroy that area and cause what is called cortical blindness. So, not infrequently, I mean, every week, we're dealing with patients who have abnormalities of this entire visual system. And my job as an ophthalmologist, number one, is to try to figure out what's causing the problem, where is the problem, and then can I do anything about it? Do I have to refer the patient? Just as, for example, patients come into the Commission for the Blind and they triage them. They decide, should they go to the housing area? Should they go there? This is what I do. I see if I can address the problem. If not, I send it to the retina specialist or the neurologist or the Commission for the Blind.
The key word here really is collaboration. And, what it is you guys are working amongst other agencies, you're working among other healthcare providers to address something that it's still kind of in its infancy stage. I mean, there's a lot of technology that is going to come in to improve eye care. I mean, for something that is so useful and so purposeful, it's quite sensitive, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the eye that, well, you know about it, I don't.
Another thing that I wanted to say, you know, in terms of collaboration
Sure.
is, I think that the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind is terrific. Certainly, you know, in terms of dispensing services, I'll let somebody else talk about that.
Sure.
But from my perspective, I get a patient, they're blind, and different definitions of blindness that the commissioner is very well versed in, maybe he'll talk about.
Okay.
But when I have my patient and I fill out my form, the commission follows up. They're very responsive. And I know because I get the feedback from the patients.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention that.
No, that was good. Now, you had mentioned, I just remembered my thought, the baby boomers. You had mentioned something about silver lining or the silver tsunami.
The big wave.
The big wave. So when it comes to baby boomers, it's important to recognize that this is something that you're going to have to deal with. Are there any continuous improvements that you're planning for now in order to meet that demand? I'd also like to get your account too, Dr. Neil Gross, if you know about any improvements in technology that they're working on to address this upcoming issue.
Well, I'm certainly happy to start with that very good question. But before we leave collaboration altogether, I do want to say that we here in Massachusetts are very blessed to have some very significant nonprofit blindness agencies with national and/or international reputations. I'm speaking about the Carroll Center for the Blind in Newton, obviously Perkins in Watertown, and MAB Community Services in Brookline and Worcester. And so MCB is very focused on public-private partnership collaborations. With respect to seniors, presently 63% of our registrants are 65 and over, and that number will become 70% based upon U.S. demographic projections by the end of this decade. Wow. So it's a population that we need to take very seriously. I'm hopeful that the incoming governor will recognize the critical importance of investing in our senior population. Governor Patrick has been all about community first, basically meaning that it's far smarter to provide services to blind consumers so that they can live in community independently as long as possible to avoid the possibility of slipping and falling and/or becoming institutionalized. So specifically, we presently have very limited resources to provide, as just one example, assistive technology to seniors. Technology has pretty well permeated our society. One is greatly disadvantaged if they can't use a computer for basic emailing. And in the case of a blind consumer, the internet for online shopping or banking. And so that's a big initiative of the agency going forward.
I'd like to comment, if I could, Paul. People like me who are seniors, and I haven't had much luck with the agency, couldn't even get a computer unless you're working. And the therapy some of us need for medical hypnosis, and I don't know whether you've heard of it, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and really good treatment for psychiatric care, we just can't seem to get. So a lot of us have lost our faith in the commission, and I'm not blaming you, I'm just telling you that, and so you'll understand.
And this is feedback that you've heard from other blind citizens as well, Joe.
There's always, oh, that commission, oh boy, here we go again.
And again, we have no funding presently to provide technology training to seniors, and essentially no funding to provide technology products. So I'm not at all surprised to hear.
And therapy too, because a lot of doctors won't take Mass Health, and it's really too bad. People don't know. They say, oh, go to the commission, go to the commission, and it just gets so disappointment. And
so why is it? I mean, when it comes down to it, it's really a lack of funding, and that's why we can't provide Joe with the services that they need. But why is it that way? I mean, why senior citizens?
One thing, Sean, I want to say, unless I'm lucky to have a job, and I'm very fortunate, and if this didn't happen to me with my family, I'd probably be employed, but because of the extreme treatment of abuse, a learning disability has involved, and I've just recently, by studying myself, found out a lot about it.
And I think Joe's raising an important point. A number of the eye conditions that cause blindness, in particular diabetic retinopathy or cortical impairment, tend to come with a number of other medical and cognitive challenges. So for someone like me with plain old garden variety retinitis pigmentosa, yes, it's robbed me of my ability to see, but otherwise I'm very healthy. And so a number of our consumers have many challenges that make blindness almost a secondary disability.
Yeah, like a bad family, especially because when I came from a bad family, nobody would listen to them. The commission tried to tell them. They just had their old-fashioned Italian ways. They're rough, and I walked on eggshells for years, and I was like hyper vigilant state, and that creates neurological problems, and this is what I wanted to get treatment for, and if I had the money, I'd pay for it myself, you know, but it's unfortunate because it's just like wasting away here.
So in a situation where we got a guy like Joe, I'm sure this isn't the first time you've gotten a call or you've heard about an instance like this. What do you tell people? How do you address it for them? I mean, where do they seek help? Where do they go? Sure.
We try to do an assessment to find out what their needs are, if it's something we can help them with, or if we can collaborate with one of our partners. And to go back to the question you asked me originally, I wanted to also add that we're seeing a lot of consumers come in with secondary medical issues. I mean, growing numbers.
Right.
So the organizations that we partner with, we collaborate with, we try to make referrals and assist people in that way.
Okay. Now, do you have any success stories with somebody who's been in a similar situation like Joe?
We probably do. I'd have to
Take
think
a little
about
look.
it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
That's okay.
I'm personally glad you did.
I do want to mention that there's a lot of collaboration going on within state government.
Sure.
So MCB is part of the Disability Cluster, which includes the Mass Rehabilitation Commission, Deaf and Hard of Hearing Commission, and Developmental Disabilities, DDS. And so we also work very closely with Elder Affairs because of the silver tsunami that I mentioned. For consumers, as an example, with cognitive impairment, working with DDS is critically important. We have a number of cases where we manage the blindness issues in DDS, the intellectual disability challenges.
Paul, can I say, where can people like me go? Like, for instance, you know what I mean when I say sighted guide technique. I'm sure you heard what happened with an organization in, I was told you heard about it in, where was it, Salem. They won't provide a sighted guide technique. They won't even let me take their arm when I come in. And they lose a lot of people. And we've already filed complaint with the MCAD, Mass Commission, but it's going to take a while to get through, and I heard you heard about this. And now I got a letter saying, oh, if you come and visit us, we'll have to bring a sighted guide in. This is the kind of nonsense which goes on. You just take the person's arm and they walk you in or outside.
So we've addressed that situation by sending in our orientation and mobility specialist and teaching the workers of the local independent living center appropriate techniques for guiding legally blind consumers.
But they won't do it. She won't do it. So Meg's going to go back one more time, and she says if they still won't, you know, you can't bring in somebody. You have a secretary, like when I go to the doctor, she says, let me take your arm, and you know, then they'll have to go to some other organization to get help. But this is what I mean. Where people like, beside this, I mean, you've done your part. Where can I get the therapist who will take Mass Health for this kind of unusual treatment?
Is there a certain level of liability that like an organization assumes when they're walking in and say you've got a blind citizen and maybe you haven't been trained the appropriate way, and while you're guiding them they get injured? I mean, would the commission or would that organization assume responsibility? I mean, for me, where we have this organization, LynnCAM, we have to manage it day to day, there is some liability that you assume when people are on your location. Is that the situation? I mean, do you think that's a reason behind it?
But that's no, the reason behind it is the director, I think, in my opinion, is very strange. We never had this problem before. When I would come in, I'd take the girl's arm, she'd walk me in like a sighted guide technique, and so forth and so on. And now all of a sudden she says, you're not allowed to do that anymore, you're not allowed to take the wheelchair. I think it's just the way she's behaving, or something may have happened, or something, I don't know, but to me it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's definitely great to get a perspective from you, Joe, and kind of get some feedback as to what you're dealing with and what you're struggling with. And it also offers these guys an opportunity to understand your story, as well as get the information out. So we're happy about that. We got a little less than 3 minutes left in the program. I want to use this time to highlight how people can get involved. So if they need help, obviously you can reach out to your local ophthalmologist if you're having eye problems, and they can go in and you can figure out what the issue is, and if it needs to be addressed by the Mass Commission for the Blind, these people are here. But say we've got somebody who's blind and they need help. I mean, where do they start? Is there a phone number to reach out, a website to address?
Absolutely. There's an accessible public website. When a consumer is registered with us, they're assigned to a caseworker, and the caseworker will contact that consumer. And hopefully that consumer will be willing to engage in understanding the range of services that they might be possible to qualify for. So our direct dial in Boston is 617-727-5550. I haven't memorized the 800 number, but perhaps somebody else knows it. But in any case, it's on our website.
Excellent. Guys, I just want to thank you again for coming in, giving up your time. I know you're all very busy. Just to recognize you each again, Paul Sainer, Commissioner of the Mass Commission for the Blind, Dr. Neil Gross, an ophthalmologist here in Lynn, Joseph McKeezy, a blind senior citizen here in Lynn, and then we've got Thelma Williams, who is the Northeast Regional Director. Again, I just want to say thank you guys for coming on and opening us up to this world. From the studio here at LynnCAM TV, I'm Sean Donahue. That's it for today's edition of the LynnCAM TV Show. I'm wishing you all the best. Cool. So this is the part of it.